I did want to play this clip for you guys because this came out last week. The David Sampson show is the sports business show on the Dan Le Batard show feed, and they had John Skipper on. John Skipper is the former president of ESPN. He runs the company that owns Le Batard's feed now, and he said something interesting about the ACC and the Pac-12 that I had kind of dismissed this idea, but I'm an idiot. I didn't run ESPN. He did. So when he says it, I want to hear about it.
And what's going on with the Pac-12 right now, who are basically on an island right now looking for someone to give them a decent media rights deal. And it appears as though right now the front runner is Apple, but we don't know what the status of that is. They're very secretive about the way that they negotiate. Fox and ESPN and the linear channels are not really interested in being big-time investors in the Pac-12. And John Skipper, you might have a solution to both of these problems.
I might, and I'm not certain that ESPN is not interested in being in the Pac-12 business. I know it's been reported, but I'm not certain that's true. I think that the ACC should expand or should merge with the Pac-12, which now has 10 teams. I would take 8 of those teams, change my footprint, have a 24-team conference with a Western division, and their ACC network footprint would expand to the West Coast. You could probably force a renegotiation with ESPN for a new deal, and you could solve both problems. The ACC would get more money, expand its footprint, could compete with the SEC and the Big Ten.
Wow. Interesting. I also agree with him when he says it doesn't sound like ESPN's out of it for the Pac-12. I do think they're very much in it because they got to have something at 10:30 Eastern time, one way or the other. But I always thought that was just too unwieldy to do something like that. But what he's saying is because the ACC network has these distribution agreements, you would then get into California, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, and cable subscribers or people who have Sling or YouTube TV in those markets would then have to pay $1.20 a month versus 40 cents a month. That's real money that still matters at this point. Now, it may change as time goes on, but I still don't see how you would manage something like that. A giant 20, it would be 25 teams in other sports with Notre Dame, but I just thought the guy running ESPN says that, or the guy who used to run ESPN says that you have to at least think about it a little bit.
But isn't this a conversation that already happened? Like that we already did?
It did happen, but and it's probably that was probably their first thought too. The people actually running ESPN probably said, "Well, let's talk about this," and then they probably came to some of the same conclusions that we just came to. Like, how would you manage this? What would you do? And also, does it make more money than the current ACC deal? Because you're going to make more off the ACC network, but then you're going to have to pay that to the people you just added. So it doesn't give Clemson and Florida State more. It allows you to pay for Oregon and Washington.
I mean, I think that like these things are interesting and compelling, and it's like a stronger version of the alliance, which didn't have these pieces, right? And it was just the handshake agreement.
Yeah, it wouldn't just be looking each other in the eyes.
I mean, you're looking for actual new revenue streams and visibility and all of these actual tangible things. I just don't know. I'm with you where I just feel like that would be so unwieldy. And I know that we have a Big Ten now that goes to LA. I know that we've heard Brett Yormark say that he wants the Big 12 in all 4 time zones, but that stuff is unwieldy. It's very hard. And it becomes so much like what you were describing earlier, like this AFC, NFC. You're organizing, scheduling, and kind of aligning things a certain way, but you're not a conference. It's not the same way.
Right. It would essentially be 2 leagues that shared. Yeah, it would be 2 leagues that shared a
for
TV
scheduling.
Network. Yeah,
I get scared thinking about it
for football. Yeah, I mean,
it scares me. I don't like it. Am I getting old where I just don't want it to change too much?
A little bit, but no, I mean that's
it's
not
like
necessarily
uncomfortable
an age thing.
No, I just like, but I have change.
Well, I I see what you're saying, Ari, and like this is where I feel it. Like I don't want the Pac-12 to go away. I think it's better for college sports to have the Pac-12.
I just
Like,
there needs to be
feel
West
strongly about
Coast.
that.
There needs to be a West Coast wing of the sport. And this, what I worry about is if
a relevant West Coast wing of
right,
the sport.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what I worry about is if another league were to just cherry pick and take what it wants from and then lets the other ones sort of fall by the wayside, you don't really have a West Coast wing. You have a little bit on the West Coast with USC and UCLA, and then whoever would be in, let's say if the Big 12 were to take a couple and the rest fall. Like that's not really a West Coast wing. And you take a part of the country that already doesn't seem particularly interested in the sport and probably make it less interested.
So I also am when it comes to the USC UCLA move to the Big Ten, it's like I do look forward to seeing USC and Michigan play, like the new matchups. But like overall, I can't stand it. Like I think it stinks.
It
just like as a viewership
weird
experience, like I loved that there were pillars on the West Coast that were like, I love that USC made the West Coast relevant this year. I love that Oregon and USC were battling to own a conference the same way that the ACC teams are trying to battle Clemson to take it over again. There is a certain conferences in general are all about geographical pride too. That's the reason why they yell SEC at all the games, because it's a Southern pride thing. It just means more matters to everybody in that conference. But when you strip the geography away from it because of television revenue, you're poking the thing that we all love so much.
But is the problem that it doesn't mean more to them? Is that the basic problem?
No, but he's
to the Pac-12.
You mean? Yeah. But his point is the one that I also feel, which is like there are regional ties that bind, and so for the SEC, they care that the league itself is a strength, right? And that everyone believes that like if one of your rivals beats somebody in another league, that is a reflection on you.
They want to believe
just,
that
like,
their family is better than this other family.
And like honestly, the entire premise of sports is based on geography. Like you root for your favorite team because of the city in front of it.
Because you can sports, see them. Yeah, and like, part of the reason that like there are lots of sports writers who are Atlanta Braves fans, right, is because like they could see it. They got it on TV. It was on TBS. So but now that you can watch everything, or you can get League Pass and follow all these teams, like you can root for teams that are not in your region, but there's like a uniqueness to each conference. That's why like when you're describing the weirdness that's going to be USC and UCLA in the Big Ten, it's going to feel weird because it's been traditionally a Midwestern conference. It has been jarring and weird for people to have Rutgers and Maryland and the East Coast as part of that footprint. Like there are these regional traditions and feels, and it just like it creates a balance.
We need Vanini, because you know what this is describing? Pro wrestling.
I thought
pro wrestling went from regional promotions to they all got gobbled up by the elder Vince McMahon, who then passed it on to the younger Vince McMahon, and the WWF, which became the WWE.
Why do you know that?
I read, Ari.
I read.
I read books and I read magazine articles, and
we need to save that as a drop so that every time Ari, gets like a basic fact wrong or geography wrong or can't do math,
it'd be the whole
just
show.
Have Andy pop in and just be like, I read every time.
I read too. I don't read about wrestling.